Today's presentation of The Bias Buzz is brought to you by Accuracy in Media, your leader in fairness and balance. Please follow us on all forms of social media at the conclusion of this presentation.
Welcome to The Bias Buzz. I'm Don Irvine, he's Brian McNichol.
Good morning.
All right, lots of news to cover this morning. We'll start off with last night's terrorist attack in Turkey. Unfortunately, once again, the terrorists are out in force and they hit an airport, and this is just a tragic thing. I don't know, the last count was, 41 dead, 147 injured. I think those numbers will continue to change. What is going on here, Brian?
Well, that's a strategic target. When you try to fly anywhere into that part of the world from the west, that's where you go, through Istanbul. And so that's sending a signal that it's not safe to come here. That's, they were detected by the cops. The police shot at them, right? Unable to stop it. Guns were not a factor. They didn't need guns, which kind of shows you that, that's the wrong thing to go after if they want to kill. There's a lot of ways to do it that don't involve buying guns.
Now, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong or if I misread this or misheard this, the security in an airport like in Istanbul is not necessarily like we have in the United States. They actually will check your luggage even as you enter the airport randomly or something to that effect. So it's not like they're necessarily just walking in to an airport in the U.S. and hitting security and somehow getting by security and then creating, doing their dastardly deed. They're actually able to do this beforehand, even with the cops. I mean, you said the cops, they saw them, but they just couldn't do anything about it.
Right, that's right. And it's a lot. It was obviously some high-powered explosives. You have people who are willing to die, just admit up front they're going to die in the attack. It's awfully hard to stop.
Right. Now, the last I heard was that we don't have any confirmation that it was ISIS or a claim by ISIS, but it is probably going to be ISIS related or something. Or there's a lot of things going on in that region. As well, okay?
Right.
And I've never flown into that airport. I've been to Turkey, but we did that by cruise. But I also wonder about the ramifications of things like this that happen, about what that happens to the economy, the tourist, business in
Right.
Turkey. I mean, these kinds of things are disconcerting.
Right. It's telling the West to stay away. That we're in charge here. You stay out. And your easiest way of getting here is now under threat.
So and just as we're really in the summer travel season, these kinds of things definitely, I think you're right. It's West, stay away. We don't want you. If this doesn't work, they'll find another target and hit that. So this is not going to be the end of it, probably.
Right.
The big news really is coming out this week has been Benghazi, much to Hillary Clinton's chagrin, I think. The Democrats came out with their report before the Republican committee came out with theirs, trying to do a preemptive strike. The news media is reporting on this as basically there's nothing new here, there's no smoking gun. But the Republicans came out, Trey Gowdy's commission came out yesterday with their report. Give me your take on this.
My take is, once people have time to read it, you'll start to see some analysis that does say, yes, there are some smoking guns here. The second is, one reason that there's not a huge smoking gun in the newspaper today is that a lot of this stuff was already out. Let's remember that, for the $7 million we wasted on this investigation, we found out she had an illegal server, that she routed all hers and her other top people's email through it, that they sent top secret stuff so classified that the FBI people had to get additional clearances to even look at it over this server, that she lied about there was a reason for the Benghazi attack, and that their response was basically to wait and hope that it got better. Those are things that we did not know that are fairly significant about it.
Right, but if you listen to the media, you watch what they're saying on television.
They have a candidate in mind here.
Yeah, they definitely have a candidate in mind. But it speaks to just their blind ambition or something or other. They are willing to risk national security, all kinds of things, for this. This is just really ridiculous.
Right, and it's but people. What the problem is, it's left the impression with a lot of people in America that she lies and hides stuff, and a lot of people who didn't know, could be the vast right-wing conspiracy, like she's always said. Could be they just got it out for her because she's a woman in a high place, But there were things on this that were incontrovertible lies. They telling Susan Rice to all those talk shows to say that this had to do with a video, telling the families of the people killed that this had to do with a video, when she knew that night immediately it had nothing to do with the video. People were like, that's a bald-faced lie. There's no dressing that up as anything else.
Right. So it's interesting. Now, do you think any of this will have any effect on the election?
Well, it already has. You're already, right now what's going on in the polls is, this is her high water mark. She got the nomination clinched. She got Obama's endorsement. She's going around with Elizabeth Warren campaigning. It's not going to get any better for her than this. And we've already driven up, this thing's already driven up unfavorables, right? It caused, 2/3 to 75% of the country to say, even if I hold my nose and vote for her, I know not to trust her, right? She is forever marked as untrustworthy. She is caught in a direct lie.
But this is the thing that gets me, though, is that we can talk about this trustworthiness issue with Hillary, and this does come up time and time again, but it doesn't seem to have totally affected her yet. I mean, her negative ratings are historically high. I mean, and Trump's are up there too. Even the liberal media will mention that her her negatives are high and that she's considered untrustworthy and things like that. And yet, it's not, to me, truly reflected in the polls. I mean, what is she doing, really kind of in this dead heat, or in this area where she's leading Trump with all of the stuff that keeps coming out?
She has all the momentum. She is the only one doing anything. Trump has that long list of people he has offended, each of which we're supposed to admit at the end of his political career, right? John McCain, Rosie O'Donnell, the list goes on and on, right? He's not adding to that list. How long has it been since someone else was added to that list? Pretty good while now, right? He's sort of cooled out. What is Trump doing right now? He went to Scotland. He's laying low. It's not going to get, when he's not spending any money, right? And he wants to self-finance or rely on outside contributions as little as possible, right? So he's not spending money. He's not doing much in the way of campaigning. He's not adding to the list of enemies. And all the stuff is happening on the other side. And what is she? One poll had her 8, one poll had her 5 ahead, right? It's not going to get, this is her high water mark. Here it is. This is her.
Right, and there was another poll that I think came out last night or this morning and said, in essence, I mean, it's a dead heat, which we've talked about before, is that
Right.
These numbers, even when she was leading, in most cases, they were close enough with a margin of error and everything like that that you could consider them a dead heat then. The media's now kind of waking up, and it's really still not Hillary's game yet. She's losing ground. I mean, we talked about other things that were going to come into play, because polls take place at that moment in time. By the time we get a chance to talk about it, could be days or since that had taken place, and things change very, very rapidly.
Right. And this is her chance to put him away, and it's not happening because of the negatives driven up by the things we wasted the $7 million on for this committee, right? Those were big, important things to learn about this candidate. And now the report's out. It's not a bomb thrower. He didn't outkick his coverage. Everything there is documented carefully, so forth, right? So, he's a prosecutor. He made the case such that the case can be made. The document's out there long before anyone has to vote. He didn't drop it, the last weekend of October and try to be a spoiler, right? It's out there, and people can think of it what they will.
Right. In that sense, from a campaign sense, it may even be, for some, too early. I mean, I think there were a lot of people who are hoping that it comes as kind of the October surprise type of a thing, where you're getting down to the nitty-gritty and the voters are really starting to make up their minds. Right now, they'll have a lot of time to digest it. Which way it goes, I don't know. But Hillary just seems to slither out and escape so much. It can be so frustrating.
But it looks now like slithering, right? It's pretty clear to look at her and watch her slither, and like her reaction to this since it's come out. It's been, okay, we've discussed this enough, let's move along. Hey, wait a minute. There's a lot still getting discussed about this, Hillary.
Yeah, there's nothing to see here. Let's move on.
Yeah,
right?
there's plenty to see, and the report It's stating things. The reason we don't see a bombshell is those things, we already know them. We already know about the server now. All these things that flowed from the server, all these national secret. You know, today the Washington Post says the Chinese hack of our intelligence is ongoing. How did they get there? They got there through this. You know, people need to understand Chinese are reading everything we say because of Hillary.
All right, let me ask you about this, though. So Hillary, I think it was on Monday, she gave a talk at the Push Rainbow Coalition International Women's Lunch or something to that effect. And in that lunch, she talked about trustworthiness and the honesty factor, and she said that she was, she wasn't happy that when the polls tell her that people don't trust her. And she says, you have to earn trust. You know, you can't just talk to people about trust and in that way. And that she has nothing to hide. And I just thought, you've got to be kidding me. What's your reaction to this?
Your whole life is hiding things. You've been hiding things forever. You took the 30,000 emails because you set up what is the reason she set up the server? As it says in one of the emails, so that our private emails cannot be accessed.
Right, the Huma Abedin, the email that surfaced that basically says, oh, wait a minute, Hillary, you weren't telling the truth on this.
Right. The things, they want to be able to have what ought to be recoverable conversations beyond recovery, right? That's what this is all about. It is evading public disclosure of public acts, right? That's what we pay for. It's like, we ought to be able to know what the government we pay for does.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, really.
And Hillary claims that she's very transparent, but it's obvious that she's not. I keep waiting for the electorate to wake up. Now, we may see that happen in November, because once again, we're still quite a ways away from this. But it does befuddle me in terms of how much that she remains up in the polls. Where, look, Trump is not the perfect candidate, but really he should in a normal, sane world, I think he should be up, by a significant margin. But
he's not trying. Right?
Yeah, right. He isn't really pushing it overly hard, and I think he's still trying to use the free earned media aspect as much as he can and milk that until they kind of slow down that. So then he'll have to spend his money.
Now it appears that he's going to try to win this election in a real untraditional way. There was this hue and cry about the state level organizations and so forth, that how far behind they are on setting this up. I don't think he cares. I think he thinks, I can talk to voters without a state level organization of people handing out bumper stickers, right? It's going to be politics practiced in a way that we've never seen before.
Right.
A lot of what Trump has done.
That's exactly right. I think there was an article that just appeared today that talked about kind of really the unconventional things that Trump is doing, how he's just changing the whole election process in essence. And so you're right about that. As the article points out, he's drawing people that others haven't drawn. He's attracting, the question whether or not he'll keep attracting them. He's attracting white Democrats, to his camp. Will he hold them in the general election? No one really knows for sure. But he's doing things and saying things that are attracting other swaths of people that are just, has been totally unpredictable. Nobody saw this coming.
Right. And another thing that's going on that will help him is this sort of strengthening of the Westphalian concept of nations, right? Where there are borders and there are policies that differ from nation to nation, and they deal with each other on a nation to nation level, right? That's taken the EU is a repudiation of that. Other things are these common markets and so forth. Okay, well, you're seeing people say, hey, that worked pretty well. Yes, it can be said to have caused wars, but we're at war now with something that we can't effectively fight because, who are we fighting? If you go attack ISIS, let's go bomb ISIS. You're also bombing a lot of people that you don't mean to bomb, right? Because just where they are. It's not a country against us. It's a people within a country. It's a non-state actor, okay? So restoring that model, that's part of what Brexit is about, and that's part of what Trump is about. It's saying, that's not an open border. You have to do whatever you do to get in the country.
Okay, so we didn't plan this segue, but that was perfect. So we want to talk about Brexit. The vote took place last week. We did the show just before the vote took place. At that time, it looked like the Remain movement was going to win. The momentum seemed to have shifted because of the murder of Cox in the Parliament, but it turned out to be completely opposite. There's a lot of people said this was close. I don't really consider 52-48 all that close on that. Now, and there's also
high 52s.
Yeah, high 52s, right? And and there's been a petition, I guess. I don't know if it's more, how many more than last time I saw it was over 2 million people had signed that they want to do this again. That's kind of a sort of, that's not going to happen, okay? It's not going to happen. I mean, so let's talk a little bit more about Brexit. I mean, how did you feel about the vote and everything?
Well, I think that one of the things we talked about this yesterday is the polling is missing this, right? The polling has missed Trump at every step of the process. Polling does not seem to gather this level of frustration with the status quo. That's why I think it's he almost it's going to be hard for him to lose because Hillary is the candidate of the status quo. But the Brexit vote is saying, we see things drifting into, where people don't understand this. Like in the Americas, the equivalent would be all the Americas get into a common country, and like Venezuelan judges are over U.S. citizens. Nicaraguan officials are making regulations we have to follow. Like we wouldn't stand that for 10 minutes, right? But they can't do that. You got to stay in the thing. I think that they're looking at, what did we lose when we ceded all this sovereignty? When we no longer had to say over what we are, and they're like, we want that back. That does not work out for us.
Yeah, one of the things that surprised me, because I hadn't paid a whole lot of attention to a lot of the intricacies of this thing, but the amount of money that UK, they were sending to the EU, to Brussels, is pretty astounding.
Yeah.
Now, there's a couple of figures. The gross figure, I think, is, 18 billion pounds or something like that. But they get like a $5 billion discount off the top for some reason. And so it's not quite that much. But it's still a lot of money that they're pouring in there, and they're not getting that back in value. They're only getting a fraction of that back. And so, just on that stance, it just seems to make a lot of sense. Why do you want to keep sending money to those guys? They're not going to send that much money back to you. They're using it to go bail out Greece and do all these other crazy things
that you're not responsible for and that you don't have any control over. Who can the guy in Britain vote against to stop what's going on in Greece? He can't. There's no one. Greece is electing this guy, but you're responsible for the decisions he makes. That's what people are looking at and saying things that obviously don't make sense, need to be fixed. That's a big part of what happened with Brexit right there.
Right, and so now we have talk about France and other countries looking at that as well. Even people I think they're making jokes about Texas. Because Texas did try to secede, or at least threw up that idea about doing that before. So it's the whole exit thing has really kind of
vote on Texas.
Yeah, that thing is spread worldwide. It's just been kind of crazy. Everybody's caught the exit fever of some sort. But it has, the political ramifications, for Great Britain. Cameron staked, his prime ministership on that. So, he's now resigned. So now you have, does Boris Johnson fill the void, or does the Home Secretary? Is there someone else out there? It's a Home Secretary. Is she like the Defense Secretary or something?
She's sort of like the Chief of Staff.
Chief of Staff, okay.
I think he was kind of the spiritual leader of the Leaves. I think he's who won that election. If a person can be said to have won it, I think that he is, the logical extension as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and he's in some ways he's Trump-like.
The hair.
Yeah, the hair. That's mainly the appearance. It's like you put them two side by side, and like, what's really the difference between the two? But one of the challenges will be for the next prime minister is just that the Scotland is making noise again about leaving. So that they would they would leave and then they would want to rejoin the EU. I think that's troublesome, but that's going to be down the line. And the markets reacted very negatively to Brexit. They've recovered, it looks like they're recovering some more today. I think that was overblown because it's not going to happen right away. Even with Brussels saying, "Oh, you have to speed this process up," this is very complex. This is not something that's going to happen in 6 months.
Well, there's some groupthink about the concept of markets reacting, right? It's like, okay, people are saying this is going to be bad, so we're going to react. Okay, and then the first one reacts, and the second one says, people saying this was going to be bad, so we're going to react. And now these other people have also reacted. So then it sort of builds, and then people say, okay, why did these things lose value? Why did these stocks lose value? Because nothing really changed, right? And nothing's going to change. And Nigel Farage had a lot of fun at the EU first meeting back yesterday, basically saying, you guys are going to make treaties with us. You're not going to stop trading with us. We're not going to stop trading with you. We all know it. We're just not going to be responsible for your mistakes anymore, right? And we're not going to, because the other thing that's being indicted here is reliance on experts, right? The EU is it's an expert-run thing. Everything is done through the regulatory stuff rather than political, because no one's really politically responsible for it. So, there's kind of a repudiation that, what the left discovered is, which they've done with climate change and a number of other things, is experts can be bought. It's very simple. You just pay them to say what you wanted to say. And, so that's part of what got repudiated, is like, quit running our life, experts. Sometimes what you're coming up with is transparently wrong,
Right. The establishment lost here, and it hurts Obama, it hurts Clinton, makes Trump look a lot better, I think, right now. And Trump had a big tirade about trade yesterday, so I think he's just kind of riding the wave. Big decisions have come out in the last week from SCOTUS, from the Supreme Court. Let's talk about that. One of the big ones was immigration. Obama really got rebuked on immigration. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think he knew he was going out on a limb there, and he was trying to get it all done, like smash and grab robbery, just taking everything and run as quick as you could. I think that's kind of where that was, and I don't think he's surprised that he got caught.
Yeah, though he did look kind of angry though when he got up to the podium and talked about this after the decision was rendered. And then you have these images in the news media, at least the ones I saw, of all of the illegal immigrants, and they're like, oh no, what's going to happen to us now?
Yeah.
We thought we were going to be able to stay forever, and that he was on the path that he's going to take care of us. Now what's going to happen? And I don't know if you've heard these ads on the radio, but I get this, every couple of days. But there's a group, I think the ads are put out, I think it's called myimmigrationstory.com or something like that. And so they're trying to weave this passionate little story in 60 seconds or whatever about being separated, what would happen to me, and things like that. So there's still this underlying thing going on here with that, but it was a rebuke to Obama, one of the last decisions that were really involved Obama directly at this point.
That's right.
Another decision that came out also was just on Monday was the Texas abortion law. Now I was down there at the Supreme Court walking around outside. It was quite a demonstration. One of the things that bothers me about these demonstrations when I go down to these things, and I should have thought about this beforehand, was that you go there and I'm looking for the pro-life people, and I found some, but the pro-choice groups, far outnumbered them. They the left does a great job of turning people out, whether or not how many of those guys were A, paid, and B, whether or not any of us had another job beyond that. Most of the rest of us, they have a job, they're working somewhere, and they usually can't just take hours out of their day to go protest. But the left doesn't seem to have any problem with that. What do you think about this decision?
You always find people hanging out during the day. Anyway, that's not necessarily true. But anyway, yes, there are a lot of people on the other side who are passionate about it too. The decision is a mishmash. First of all, the court has been holding in recent years that say there were 5 sections to a law. If they found this involved some of the ACA cases, the Obamacare cases. There were 2 sections that were unconstitutional. You could still keep the other 3 sections, right? In this, they said, baby out with the bathwater. It's all bad. It's like, well, what about this one? They didn't even challenge this part. Yeah, all gone. So, which is kind of curious. And then, so they say undue burden. Okay, which of these regulations constituted undue burden? How do we write a regulation that doesn't? Because, are you saying you can do an abortion, in a in your little apartment, now, because, any regulation on the facility is an undue burden. Where's that line? None of that stated, right? We don't know now. So I think what they did was, they rendered an ideological conclusion, and they didn't fill in the blanks. And so there will now have to be a lot of law unspooling the specifics of this. That was, kind of sloppy work. I remember I was coaching basketball when they announced that Scalia had died. And one of the dads showed me on his phone and said, "This is a catastrophe." And he is right. It has been a catastrophe. And if we don't win this election and get good people back on the court, this is just the start.
Right, and that's exactly right, because what we're seeing here is what you've seen since Scalia's passing, is that, and this decision was 5-3, but the other decisions that are 4-4, what would have happened in those cases.
He brings people along. Too,
yeah, he does. He does bring people along, and so at first I thought maybe 4-4, but Kennedy with the whole thing, you never know. And without Scalia, it probably lets him float to the other side more easily. Anyway, I don't think that the Texas law was all that bad. I thought they were trying to protect women's health and women's safety. It didn't seem to be overly burdensome, but that's just me.
Restrictions held up elsewhere, right, as reasonable.
Yeah. So, but for whatever reason now it's they struck that down. But if nothing else, as you said, this has got. We've been talking about this for years anyway. Even with Obama, but this is probably the most important election in this sense for the Supreme Court, because Merrick Garland is hanging out there. Right. I mean, and if he had been, if the Senate had gone and proved him, it would have been all over. That's for sure.
Remember all the pressure that was going to force their hand on that?
Yeah.
I haven't heard the name Merrick Garland.
No. But conservatives, Republicans, whatever voters got to realize if you want to see this court go all the way to the left, you want. Yeah, this is it. Then you vote for Hillary, and that's it, because it's over. If we don't get a conservative in there, we don't get someone like at least Trump, who says that he will appoint more conservative or Scalia type thinking judges in there. This is a big problem.
Right.
So, all right. So we're come up towards the end of the show, and we're going to do something new. We're going to call it the 2-minute warning. I'm going to give Brian 60 seconds to talk about anything he wants.
Passing of Pat Summitt, greatest women's basketball. She's been passed in some win totals and so forth, but. From where she started, driving the van to away games. She was 22 years old when she got the job. The second year she was a coach, she was in the NCAA tournament. She was never not in the NCAA tournament after that. She made the Sweet 16 28 straight years, won 8 national championships. First coach of either gender to reach 1,000 wins. She came here, they played at GW one time, and we took a group of girls from McLean down there to see it. And I bought 150 tickets, and I'm standing out in front of the Smith Center buying more because so many of these girls and their families, and it was really great to see it being about women's sports, not, something good and positive out of women's sports, which you don't a lot of times hear, and it was inspired by her. They weren't there to, hang out with me or to watch GW. They were there because Pat Summitt was there, inspired people.
Yeah, I will. Pat was she's a legend. She's an icon. She'll live on in people's memories for a long, long time. It was unfortunate. Was the dementia, the early onset Alzheimer's type of thing, a devastating disease. But she was a real trooper, and she deserved a lot of credit. So I'm going to spend just the last few seconds of saying, look, one of my pet peeves was that whole sit-in for the Democrats on the House floor. Childish, churlish, everything you can think about you want to throw at that. Go ahead. This was ridiculous. I love it.
Just find the quotes for when Ted Cruz was doing it.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it was a historic sit-in, and they turn to John Lewis and they make this seem like some historic civil rights type of thing happening all over again. Absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion. This is, and they were going to plan more sit-ins around the districts. This is just crazy. I mean, anybody who supports these people, you're out of your mind. So. That's my say on that, and then we're going to end today's Bias Buzz podcast by saying, Happy 4th of July, everybody. We've got a great country. Celebrate this weekend. Remember who we are, and let's just go and do it. And until next week, this has been the Bias Buzz.